Hello guys and welcome to this video where we are going to talk about how you can get access to some public APIs quite easily and call them with not much of a headache as they have their documentation made available. And for that we are going to head to Rapid API, which is an online tool that I find very useful. It has a hub that has hundreds and thousands of public APIs, as I've said, along with their documentation, and also ways for you to call them in any language that you might have your application in. So you don't have to look any further than this. Besides their hub, they also have a blog and they have interesting articles here like top 50 most popular APIs. And if we take a look, they have all sorts of APIs going from flight information to weather to the NASA API, the URL shortener service, MBA, music APIs like Genius for getting lyrics to your favorite song, Deezer, and things like that. All you have to do is search the API that you need here. You can see that you can toggle only public APIs and go on to find the one that would fit in your project, and you can just call it like that. You need to pay attention because some of them, even though they are public, they charge you some money after an amount of requests made to them. So for example, here we have the recipe food nutrition API and you need to subscribe to test. And as you can see, you have the basic, which is free, but you are going to be charged a very little amount after you surpass 500 requests per day on the results endpoint. But with that being said, some of them are completely free and you don't need to be worried that you might get charged at some point. For example, let's take the Google Translate API, which I know for a fact that it is free. We can go on subscribe for free. As you can see, it did not prompt me to enter my credit card details. And the nice thing about this Rapid API is that besides their endpoints, they also have the API documentation made available for you. You can see we have three endpoints here: the detect, the languages, and the translate. And each of them is documented here, things along the lines of what parameters you need to put in order to get a successful request. If we take a look at the detect endpoint, for example, which is a post, this is supposed to detect the language of a text you are sending as a parameter. In Rapid API, you also have header parameters that you need to send in order for the API to know who you are and where are you calling from. You can think about this as instead of giving you your API an API key, you are going to use the Xrapid API key and host in order for them to know where you are calling from and who you are basically. But besides that, this method, as I've said, has one parameter, and that is called a queue apparently. And this is a text that you can write in a language of your choice. And what it will return is the language which it is written in, if it can detect that. And as you can see, if we write English is hard but detectably so, we can test the endpoint and we get back the EN language, which stands for English. The code snippet for this, meaning the code that you need to write in order to call this exact endpoint of this exact API, is given by them and you can just copy it. And besides that, you also have, as mentioned before, a wide array of languages that you can choose from. For this, we are going to go with JavaScript since it is much easier and you don't actually have to install anything to call it. And we are going to go with XML HTTP request. So this is the code we are going to put in a script that is in the JavaScript language, and it is going to call the API for us with no problems. It sets up the request headers as well. So it gives it the Rapid API key and host, and also the data, meaning the parameter for which to call the endpoint. And this is English is hard but detectably so, as you can see. To actually call this endpoint from our local machine, we are going to head to the terminal, and I already did this. You can do the ls command in order to see what directories you have at the path you are at. You can change directories with cd to whatever directory you wish this folder of this project to be in. I made it on desktop, and then you can mkdir in order to make a folder and then write its name. I did API cores, and then after changing directories into this API cores folder, you can touch on index.html and on script.js. You can create this with the command douch and then the name of the file, so index.html. I already did this. Going even further, I opened them with Visual Studio Code, and as you can see, I have a basic snippet of an HTML document. These are all local, so we are not going to deploy them. This is very simple and beginner friendly. All I did here was I referenced the script.js and I left the remainder of the body empty. If we go to the script.js, I just copied the contents of the API call given by Rapid API. This is actually another API call, but we are going to update it with this one. And when you open index.html file in your browser, you can see that we can reload this. And if we press the F12 button to open the console up, you can see that we have the response given by the endpoint. At line 8, we have the console log, meaning it logged into the console the response of the endpoint, which is similar to what we had here. If we called it, you can see it had the language EN for English, and here this is what we get as well. It also gives you is reliable and confidence variables in order to better assess its confidence and reliability in the fact that this is the language of the text that you gave as a parameter. So there is a wide array in this hub besides Google Translate. You can check flight data, you can get city data, you can get free SMS at your phone number to two-factor authenticate an application, so that might be very useful if you are implementing the security part of your project and you don't want to have any headaches by implementing it yourself further, or you want a quick way for two-factor authentication to be available to you. But besides that, you can also make an account with Rapid API and check them out if you want to take a look at their other endpoints. But besides this, I thank you very much for sticking with me up to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it or have any other ideas regarding videos about APIs, feel free to leave them in the comments. And until next time, have a good one.